Hi all, welcome to the session on Code GPT extension for Visual Studio Code. In this video, we will explore the benefits of using the Code GPT extension available in Visual Studio Code. This extension utilizes the GPT model to assist programmers and developers in writing code that is efficient and easy to maintain. Code GPT offers a range of key features that includes get code, where as a developer we can create a comment asking for a specific code, and Code GPT will help us to write a code out of the command. Convert code helps in converting code from one language to another. Explain Code GPT. Code GPT will open a chat section and explain the selected code. Refactor Code GPT. Code GPT will open the code section and refactor the selected code. Document Code GPT. Code GPT will open the chat section and document the selected code. Find problem Code GPT. Code GPT will open the chat section and identify any issues in the selected code. Unit test Code GPT. Code GPT will open the chat section and create unit test for the selected code. Ask Code GPT. Code GPT will open a new editor and respond to the question. Ask Code GPT with code selected. Select the code and ask the question. Code GPT will open a new editor and respond to the question. With this, let's try to demonstrate each features of Code GPT. For that, let's open Visual Studio. So this is a Visual Studio Code wherein we can add some more extension or a plugin called Code GPT-4. For that, let me go to the extension in the left panel and search for Code GPT. So I can install this extension by clicking on install. Once the Code GPT has been installed, the next step is to apply a API key so that the Code GPT can communicate with the chat GPT to get an answer. So for that, let me close the extension and just say Control Shift P to and say set API key. So when I say set API key, it will ask for the API key that has to be generated from the OpenAI API key. So for that, let us go to the Chrome and just say OpenAI API key. So where we will be able to create a new secret key. I have already created a secret key for myself. You can create your own by clicking on create new secret key. Since I have already created my secret key, I'll just copy that and paste it in the window. So here, once I enter my API key, I can click on enter and then it says API key has been saved and we have to reload the window. So how to reload the window? Again, Control Shift P and just say reload window. This reload the window and the extension is ready for us to answer for our queries. Along with that, in the left panel, we'll also be able to see something called as Code GPT chat, which when click will give us a window where I can be able to see some suggestions and where I'll be able to ask for a question and send for it. So now let me create a new file and I can create a file of JavaScript for the demo purpose and I can save it as demo.js file. Now a new file has been created for us, demo.js. So now let's go on with all the features of Code GPT. So the very first feature of Code GPT is to create a code from the comment given by the developer. So for that, let us give a comment in the JavaScript, just saying write a JavaScript code for Fibonacci series. So once I write the comment for which a code has to be generated, I can click on Control Shift I for the Code GPT to start thinking and give me the code relevant to the comment that has been given. So here it gives the Fibonacci series in JavaScript. I can just copy the whole thing out and paste it in my JS file. Close this. So here I'll be able to see the code which is written in JavaScript for a Fibonacci series. The next thing is with the Code GPT is that we can convert any code of any language from one language to the another language. For example, this Fibonacci series is written in JavaScript. Now let's try to convert it to the Java code. So for that, let me select the code, go to the chat where I can ask a question and just say convert code to Java. This will take up the selected code and convert the same code into the Java program. So I can just copy it and paste it in my Java application. So since this is a JavaScript file, so Java is not supported in this file. So let me remove this. So this is how we can convert a code that is written in one language to another language. For example, we converted here a Fibonacci series from JavaScript to Java code. Next is a code has been written by the Code GPT. Now, as a developer, I might not able to understand the code entirely. So I can ask the Code GPT itself to explain the code to me. So for that, let me select the code, right click and just say explain Code GPT. This will open a chat section where it will explain each and every line of our code, and you will be able to see the expected output, and it will also explain what each and every line is doing here. This is how a Code GPT can help us in explaining the code. Not only the code that was written by Code GPT, I can write my own code and I can ask Code GPT to explain my own code. Next is, let's say the code is pretty big or pretty confusing. So shall we refactor it? Okay, let's try the Code GPT to refactor the code here. So let me select the code, right click and just say refactor Code GPT. So this will take up the code that has been selected and it will refactor the code for us. So here it gives the alternative code or the refactored code for us. So I can just copy it and replace it with the original code. So this is the replaced code or the refactored code which is replaced. The next is, once we have refactored it and once we are satisfied with the code here, we have to document the code. There might be a scenario to document the code. So for that, let me select the code, right click on it and just say document code GPT. This will take the code, selected code and document the code in a text format. So it goes to each of the line and documents it like what each line doing. Once we have documented and then we run the application in our local system, let's say there might be some bug that might be raised. So for that, let's try to find the problem in the code that has been generated. So let me select the code, right click and just say find problem code GPT. So here it says there is no syntax error in the code because this code was written by Code GPT itself. So it should not have any syntax error. But what if a code has been written by the developer by himself and there is a bug or the problem in it? So he can just go select the code, right click and just say find problems, where he will be able to find the problem with the code that is written by the developer. Now we have created the code, we have documented the code, and we have also find any potential problem in the code. If there is no any potential problem, the next thing is to write the unit test code, so which makes an integral part of writing a code. So for now, as a developer, I need not to worry about writing the test cases for this code. Instead, I can use the Code GPT itself to write the unit test cases for this particular code. So it's for that, again, let me select the entire code, right click on it and just say unit test code GPT. It opens the chat section and it starts to write all the test cases, unit test cases for my code. So basically it started giving the unit test code for me, which can be tested using the JavaScript Mocha library, and it also provides the explanation of what each line of test cases is actually doing. So for example, in the first line we have something called as describe, and in the explanation it provides what describe function is actually doing. So we need not to worry about how to run it and how to write the unit test codes. So once we have written all the code, we have documented the code and we have written the unit test code also, the last thing might be to create the readme.md file for the code that we have written. So sometimes back, previously we have documented the code where we documented the code in a txt format. But there might be a scenario where we have to document the code in a markdown value. So for that, let me select the code, go to the chat and just say create readme.md with markdown value. So this will create a readme.md file with the markdown supported values. So here as you can see, you will be able to see the title along with that some text, along with that some syntaxes, parameters, examples, outputs. So that, for example, if you want to document it in a form of a markdown supported value, you can use the code GPT to create a readme.md file for you, and you can just copy the whole thing out and create a readme.md file on its own. The next thing is to ask code GPT. It's not only for documenting code or generating code, documenting code, explaining code, or creating a readme.md file. We can also use Code GPT to answer for our technical questions. For example, let's say in a chat, let's say what is Fibonacci series. So it starts giving the explanation about what do you actually mean Fibonacci series and how it actually looks like. So you need not to go to the chat GPT again and ask the question there. So it's not only regarding the code that you have written, you can ask any technical question here to the code GPT. For example, let's say, what is collections in Java? So code GPT will try to explain me what do you mean by collections in Java also. So can it answer every queries that I have? For example, if I have a political question, will the chat code GPT will be able to answer that? Let's try it out. Let's say, who was the code GPT says that it cannot answer any political question or which is outside of the technical questions, whereas it gives a small description with a small answer itself and not explaining in depth. So the code GPT is developed or plugin which is developed for a plugin to the Visual Studio Code where it tries to answer only technical questions and not any questions outside technicality. So this is how a code GPT can help us in creating the code which is more efficient. With this, we come to end of this video where we learned about code GPT extension available in Visual Studio. And we also saw a different features, how code GPT helps us for a developer. That's all for the session. Thank you.